Hello everyone, just a short little video for you right now, because, we just got the little identity breakdowns for the new Rosespanner workshop banners coming this update. And so they're mainly focused on tremor and of course like blunt damage in the process. So let's just get into it.
새로운 업무는 좌측에 호출이시군요. 제가 필요하시군요.
So, Meursault's the 2-star identity of this banner, and for his skill 1, he, it's simple enough, 1 coin, on heads inflict tremor, on hit inflict tremor. So either way it's gonna inflict some tremor, but if you get heads it'll inflict, well, even more tremor. It's a gloom primary, and blunt of course. And then now for his skill 2, Forced Break, which has 2 coins. On heads inflicts tremor, on hit inflicts tremor on the first coin, so basically pretty much the exact same thing as the coin on the skill 1. But for the second coin, if target has a certain amount of tremor or more, inflict attack power down next turn. Now of course we don't know exactly how much tremor it means, but if it is a decent amount, this could be a very nice thing to have. Just being able to weaken people pretty consistently, because that is one of the main appeals of Meursault, like using like chains of others to like weaken people. So having like a way to weaken people without weakening himself is very good. Now for his skill 3, it's a sloth blunt skill with 4 coins, and it's called Finishing Run Up. Now, the first 3 coins have the exact same effect of on hit inflict tremor, and on heads gain charge count. Now you may have noticed this is the only mention of charge in the skill, because of the fact this is your only way of gaining charge, and your only way of spending charge is the 4th coin of this. On hit, burst tremor. When bursting tremor, reduce tremor count, then spend all charge to further raise stagger threshold. So, normally whenever you burst tremor, it doesn't actually reduce the tremor count, and the tremor count only goes down at the end of each turn. However, it seems that using this burst tremor, it will reduce the tremor count, and all the charge you gain from this skill is then spent into further raising stagger threshold. So basically, this is the kind of skill that does really well at high emotion levels, because if you can hit all heads for the first 3, then you're going to gain like pretty much his full charge count, and there's not really any way he'd have more than however many he'd get from that. Unless, of course, the only other way to get charge on this unit is through Dawn's Telebowl. Because if we look at it, his defense, he's got a guard defensive skill, nothing too special, no special effects or anything. And so for his passive, he's got Chronic Fatigue. In a clash, the opponent loses clash power if they have a certain amount of tremor or more, and when recovering from stagger, heal HP. So that second part makes me think that there's a decent chance this unit, this Rosespanner workshop stuff has like possibly like just kind of like higher stagger thresholds. Maybe it'll be something like She Association where the stagger thresholds will be like higher, or maybe he's just going to be a rather tanky unit because Meursault does have a tendency to get tanky stuff. Now the losing clash power of enemy that has tremor works further with the whole idea of his second skill and inflicting attack power down. Meaning that this is kind of going to be like a little bit of an oppression-based identity focused on weakening people. Now, of course, passives. It's hard to tell for sure based on these because we don't know how much they'll cost to actually activate them, whether or not they'll be based on owned sins or resonance. Still, that sounds pretty good if it's anything you can use fairly reasonably, and depending on this certain amount of tremor part. And to support passive, one ally with the highest speed lowers the clash power of opponents with tremor. This could be pretty decent. I mean, it's just things, if they're basically whoever's got the highest speed, if their target has any tremor at all, they just reduce their clash power. Could be nice on teams where you've got a little bit of tremor. And because I mean, if we get a lot of tremor units, I can see this one being outshone. Of course, we don't know any of the roles yet. So this Meursault could be a very good, like, support tremor. Although, of course, Meursault is very nice for tremor stuff, mainly because his Pursuance Ego is just a guaranteed Tremor Burst Ego. And you know, more ways to inflict Tremor Burst whenever you want is very good. And also Pursuance. It does cost 1 Gloom, 2 Wrath, and 4 Sloth, which are the three sins used by these skills. So this Meursault definitely would synergize very well with Pursuance. Now, moving on to the 3-star identity, Rosespanner Workshop Representative, Rodion.
안녕 안녕. 장미 스패너 공방 대표 로자야. 걸려라. 좋아, 몸 좀 풀어보자고.
So this unit, pretty similar deal, very focused on Tremor, got mainly like blunt stuff. So looking at her skill 1, it is a 2-coin pride skill that is blunt. On heads inflicts, for the first coin, on heads inflicts Tremor, and on hit you gain charge count. So this one already is going to be a lot more in depth within the charge than the Meursault one. And the second coin, on hit, just inflicts Tremor count. Now, you may have noticed that the actual Meursault Rosespanner Fixer didn't have any way to increase Tremor count. So he's kind of going to be focused on... So that one seems to be very focused on just increasing the Tremor amount and just bursting Tremor. Rodion, on the other hand, has a lot of ways to inflict Tremor count here. So for first skill, I mean, inflicts Tremor count and gives charge count, so pretty all-around nice skill 1. Now for skill 2, it is a Pierce attack, and it is Gloom with 2 coins. The first coin on hit just inflicts Tremor count, kind of showing how she's very heavy into Tremor count. All of her attacks have a guaranteed Tremor count, assuming you get all the coins, or at least the coins that inflict the Tremor count. And her skill 2, or her second coin on her skill 2, has a quite interesting effect. On hit inflicts Tremor, and then there's several bullet points after this. Above a certain amount of charge count, reuse this coin if it lands heads up to 2 times. It inflicts more Tremor if reused, or it says resued here, but I think that's supposed to be reused, because resued doesn't make sense. If the coin is reused twice, burst Tremor after inflicting it, and after bursting Tremor, reduce Tremor count. Kind of showing like the whole thing about like these guys like reducing Tremor count on bursting Tremor, similar to Meursault. So basically this works something like, well, think about something like how Cloud Cutter or Karakuma Honglu reuses its coins if the target doesn't have a certain amount of bleed, although in this case it's based on if Rodion has a certain amount of charge count. Now, this is her only purpose of charge. She doesn't have any way to spend charge, and she can gain charge with quite a few methods. So it seems like this is a unit similar to Rabbit Heath, where she doesn't spend charge, she just needs to have her charge above a certain amount to gain a boost. Oh no, she does have a way to spend charge, never mind that, but this seems like the main purpose of charge, because you can just get a very powerful skill 2. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the case of a unit where her skill 2 is her strongest one, in the right circumstances, of course. And now moving on to her skill 3, it's Envy with 3 coins. On use, you just straight up gain charge count. First coin inflicts Tremor count on hit, showing the whole guaranteed Tremor count from all of her skills. Second coin inflicts Tremor on heads, and on hit it's a burst Tremor that also reduces Tremor count. And then the skill 3 is another burst Tremor that reduces Tremor count, and if the target is staggered, it deals a certain amount of damage as bonus damage. So this skill alone has 2 burst Tremors. If you can build up a lot of Tremor count on a unit, such as using stuff like LCCB Ishmael would be great for this, then you can do an insane amount of stagger damage. Of course, at the cost of a lot of the Tremor count. Very interesting stuff. So, another interesting thing is she's got her defensive skill. It's a guard, and on combat start you gain charge count. So you can't always just have her like do nothing in order to gain charge count, which is pretty nice in a lot of circumstances. Stuff like, for example, if you're going to if it's multi-wave fight and someone else is going to finish off the first wave, you can just have Rodion just defend a bunch in order to just build up her charge, because she doesn't need to attack there. So very useful. And then so her passive is here's to getting off early. When bursting Tremor, spend charge to further increase the stagger threshold raise, and whenever you burst Tremor, gain haste and blunt damage up next turn. This is also another really strong sounding passive. Once again, whatever it costs is going to definitely change what it means. Based on these units, I think both of these passives are probably going to be either Gloom or Pride, depending on which way they go, because Meursault's got a Gloom skill 1 and a Pride skill 2, and Rodion's got a Pride skill 1 and a Gloom skill 2. So that seems to be what Rosespanner kind of focuses on mainly. And for a support passive, Resonant Spanner, when one ally with the lowest speed bursts Tremor, increases the stagger threshold raise. Just a nice little thing to buff it if you're ever using a Tremor build not using Rosespanner Rodion. However, this definitely seems like one of the best, if not the best, Tremor unit in the game. She's probably gonna be, she's probably gonna be best. The only really good Tremor unit right now is LCCB Ishmael, and she's only got one skill that actually does anything Tremor related. So Rodion definitely seems like she's going to be capable of surpassing that. So yeah, both these identities they're very interesting. This kind of like semi-charge Tremor stuff that has a high focus on reducing Tremor count whenever you burst Tremor. Because like logically you'd expect that to be how Tremor works, but no, the Tremor count is kind of just like a timer on how long you have until the Tremor runs out. But yeah, overall, I like these units. Once again, I joke about Tremor a lot, so I'm excited to see actual, like, decent Tremor support. And hopefully it turns out to be good. Meursault especially could definitely use a decent identity. But that'll be all for this time. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.